Does the Stop Trump movement have any chance of derailing the Donald? And will his detractors in the media have much impact? I sat down with Charles Krauthammer, the syndicated columnist, author, and Fox News contributor, here in Studio One. Charles Krauthammer, welcome.
Pleasure to be here.
Is it fair to say that for many months you misjudged Donald Trump's appeal to Republicans?
Yes.
Why?
Well, because I found his appeal so unappealing that I found it unfathomable that he would garner such a large constituency. I still remain mildly amazed by the phenomenon, but I no longer deny it.
Mildly amazed, not shocked, and out of denial, which is a good sign. I mean, last August in the candidate casino on Special Report, you had more money on Bush and Rubio. You put your first bets on Trump and Cruz. Now you've got $80 for Trump, 10 for Cruz. Interesting, when I interviewed Trump a couple weeks ago in Palm Beach, he brought you up, as he so often does when he talks about Fox News, and he says you never have anything nice to say about him. And he also said that some of the commentators, he didn't necessarily say you, he feels have a kind of a personal hatred for him.
I think he feels that about just about everybody. If you ask him to evaluate anyone, I remember at the end of a Maureen Dowd column, and he was asked, how do you feel about X, Y, Z? She went through a list. And if you look at that, some of them are athletes or whatever. His answer is, yes, so-and-so, he likes me, good guy. So-and-so, oh, good friend, good guy. Everything is in relation to how they feel about him. So I'm sure he feels that I have absolutely no animus against him as a person. I have no reason to. Had he not become a presidential candidate, I mean, I don't talk about him otherwise.
Sure.
I just think he's out of his depth. And, well, obviously he's a good candidate, and maybe he will win, although I'd be surprised. I think he'd be very bad for the country. That's the only criterion by which I judge him.
For example, when he gave the speech to AIPAC avowing support for Israel, you said, well, he's just uttering the necessary cliches. Is that not giving, you sound like you weren't giving him the benefit of the doubt. Politicians utter cliches all the time.
Right, but, I mean, I would have said that about any of the other speeches. I didn't find any of them creative. It's clear that he doesn't know the Middle East very well. I actually believe that when he said I'd be neutral, neutrality, that was not an intentional code word. You know, the language of the Middle East is just a host of code words. Even-handedness, neutrality has a certain meaning. So, of course, it was interpreted as anti-Israel, which is what it means in the lexicon. I am sure that that was not his intent.
Right.
He meant it as a layman. So here's a guy who doesn't know the language, is not fluent in the issues, didn't know Hamas from Hezbollah a few months ago, clearly was reading a speech read for him. Now, you know, if you have a Ted Cruz speaking, or a Hillary Clinton, especially Hillary Clinton, who's been immersed in these issues, I would have a different reaction. I thought he did very well with the speech.
Is the core of your opposition to Trump, as opposed to, say, Ted Cruz, who is an aggressive conservative, is the core of your opposition to Trump that you feel he's not really a conservative?
If it were only that, I think my opposition would be a lot less than it is. There are other candidates who are not that conservative. Take a Rand Paul. He's a libertarian, conservative in some ways. You know, he was not somebody I would have supported, but I hardly argued against his candidacy the way I have against Trump. It's also the matter of temperament, which I don't have to spell out. It is written all over him. It's written all over the stuff he's done with Cruz, Megyn Kelly, with a whole list of things. And that kind of temperament, I think, is so inappropriate for a president.
And you don't have that criticism of Cruz? You don't have that criticism of Cruz?
Well, not in the sense that I see it in Trump. Cruz may not be the most likable guy, but you don't elect somebody simply because you have a beer with them.
Let me jump in here because I want to get to another question.
But the question is, does he have the judgment? Does he have the wisdom? Does he have the self-restraint to be in the Oval Office?
Here's the mainstream media take right now. The Republican Party can either go along with Trump's nomination, which would rupture the party, or deny him the nomination at a contested convention, which would rupture the party. Which is true? Are they both true?
They could both be true, but I think it depends how they go into the convention. If Trump is, you know, a 3-foot putt away from the majority, say 100 seats, 50 seats, then I think there's a sense in which he deserved it or he got near to it. Technically not. I guess he could be stopped. But I think you could then justify the argument it was swiped. But if he's simply ahead of Cruz,
He's on the 16th hole of the golf course.
yeah, on the 16th hole,
Yeah.
you're ahead by 2. It's not a gimme at that point. Then we all know, famously, Lincoln was not leading in the delegates when he was nominated for the presidency in 1860.
Last question. Which will have a bigger impact on the campaign? The bombings in Brussels and all of the terror issues that it raises, or the spat going on between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump about their wives, and now this National Enquirer story about Cruz and some of the more tabloidy stuff?
I would divide the answer in 2. In the primaries, I think it has been, will be, terrorism. The Trump campaign took off like a rocket after the Paris attacks. It seemed to retroactively justify some of the scandalous stuff he said and the stuff that came after, which is the barring of Muslims. As
in
for
the general
election, I think the wife stuff, the gutter stuff, the crazy stuff, that's going to carry over. It's not going to affect primary because people they know who Trump is. They've been exposed to him now very heavily. But I think when you get in the general election, when the Democrats are going to unload Oppo research, it'll be a different story.
Charles Krauthammer, thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure.